Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into some really quite striking ideas from economist Richard Werner.
That's right. We're looking at excerpts from his interview on Journalistically Speaking.
And he draws some sharp contrasts, doesn't he, between Western economies and others, particularly in the East.
He really does stark comparisons.
So our goal here is to unpack Werner's perspective, why he thinks many Western nations face debt and shrinking GDPs while others seem to thrive.
And importantly, what that might mean for you listening.
Okay, let's get into it. What's the core contrast Werner is painting?
Well, it's pretty stark. He points to countries like, the US, Germany, France, the UK. He sees them grappling with serious debt issues, negative GDP growth even.
Negative growth, wow.
Yeah, he specifically flags Germany, suggests it might be facing 3 straight years of a shrinking economy, which he notes hasn't really been seen since the lead up to 1933. It's a worrying comparison he makes.
Okay, so that's one side. What about the other, the East?
Right. He sees economic strength, or at least better performance, in places like Russia, China, India, Vietnam, Malaysia.
And why the difference? What's his explanation?
Fundamentally, he puts it down to leadership. His argument is that leaders in the East tend to operate more in the national interest, whereas in the West, he suggests decision makers often have, and these are his words, other motives and goals. Goals, he believes, aren't really aligned with what's best for the citizens there.
Okay, that's a big claim. Other motives. How does he suggest that plays out? He mentions external interference, unelected bodies.
Exactly. This is where his analysis gets quite provocative. He brings up Japan's lost decades as a kind of case study. He claims external U.S. interests, and he specifically names the Federal Reserve, influenced Japan's central bank to essentially engineer a property bubble and then crash it through interest rates, credit, that sort of thing.
Right, influencing policy from the outside.
And then in Europe, he focuses on the European Central Bank, calls it the most powerful independent central bank in the world. Basically argues it's above the law, not really accountable to anyone.
And the EU structure itself.
He's critical there too. Points out the European Commission is unelected yet powerful, and the European Parliament. He views it more as a rubber stamp. He even compares that structure, quite pointedly, to the old Soviet system.
Strong words.
Yes. And he argues these supranational bodies often push what he calls globalist agendas over specific national interests.
Okay, so if that's the structure Werner describes, how does he connect that to the problems faced by everyday people? You mentioned this prescription for disaster.
Right. He points to specific policy areas. First, massive spending on what he terms external agendas, foreigners, and foreign wars, things he sees as wasteful from a citizen's perspective.
Okay, wasted resources. What else?
Then there's the workforce. He argues policies have actually reduced the percentage of the population that's working. He mentions mass immigration, like in Germany, where millions arrived, but many, he claims, aren't integrated into the workforce.
And a brain drain.
And a brain drain, yes. Skilled people leaving. So this combination, in his view, pushes wages down, fuels inflation, generally makes life harder.
And he thinks there's an underlying goal to all this.
He suggests the goal, for European elites anyway, is to destroy the nation state, to ultimately create a kind of United States of Europe without nations. That's his interpretation.
Wow, that paints a picture of increasing centralized control. Does he talk about money in this context? Digital currencies.
He does, and it's a crucial point for him. He distinguishes between decentralized crypto, which he thinks might offer some honesty, and central bank digital currencies, CBDCs.
And CBDCs are different.
Very different in his view. He calls them the central planner's dream. He warns they could enable a totalitarian control state. Imagine programmable money where your spending could be restricted based on, say, government approval, or even your carbon footprint.
That sounds concerning.
He believes these kinds of power grabs often happen during crises, and he sees the history of central banks themselves going back centuries as this slow creep of centralized power, using crises to gain more control.
So, faced with this picture he paints, what does Werner suggest people can actually do?
His advice is fairly direct. Resist things like digital ID and these digital central bank currencies, openly but politely, and for protecting your assets. He says he's bullish on gold, recommends physical gold, and maybe silver for smaller investments, tangible assets, basically.
Okay, physical gold, silver. What about the U.S. dollar? We hear so much talk about its status. Is it finished, according to Werner?
He gives a sort of yes and no answer, which is probably realistic. Long term, he thinks the trajectory is unsustainable because of the sheer level of U.S. national debt. It's exponential.
But short term,
Short term, it's still the world's #1 currency. It's not disappearing tomorrow. But he does acknowledge alternatives are rising, like currencies potentially associated with the BRICS countries. So, shifts are happening.
right. This has certainly been a deep dive into Werner's quite challenging perspective.
Definitely thought provoking.
He's arguing that economic systems, political choices, even money itself, are being shaped by forces he describes as unelected, often not working in the public interest.
And his view is that understanding these forces is step one.
Absolutely. Step one for perhaps protecting your own financial situation and thinking about the kind of future you want. So, lots to think about there. Does Werner's focus on gold resonate? Or are other alternatives more appealing? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Perhaps our individual awareness and the choices we make based on it really is the most powerful thing we have.